join forces with our corporate members and deliver the best of educational program, of raising awareness of different topics, and organize different technical sessions. So this time I would also take opportunity to invite all our corporate members to come and approach to us and propose the topics so we can host together some of the educational programs. So this session today is very important, and most of our members actually reached out to us asking to organize a session talking about return of investment of green building certification, which concern not only like consultants, architects, engineers, but also developers, clients, investors, and all stakeholders involved in green building certification. So today our speaker is Nareg Oughourlian, who is strategic development manager and engineer with the lead AP certification, EBOM, and CCR level 1K. You will tell us more about your credentials and your background, and please introduce Alpin to our attendees today. So welcome, Nareg, and I will hand over the mic to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sandra. We're also very, very proud to be part of the Kuwait Green Building Council. Well, hello, everyone. This is Nareg Oughourlian. I'm part of the Alpin family. This is, as you can see, the pictures from a while back. This was pre-corona, before we got stuck home without any form of exercise. But going back, yes, my name is Nareg Oughourlian. I'm part of the Alpin management team responsible for the strategic development in the company. My background, however, is purely engineering. I'm a lead AP. I've been a lead AP since 2010, 2009, 2010. I've been in Mostadam PQP since 2012, 13, I think. And I've been involved in sustainability for the last decade. I started off with a lot of interest in commissioning, actually, which is an interesting synergy. And that led me to sustainability, because I saw that as a way to push commissioning forward. And then I just thought of sustainability as the comprehensive way to approach this field. And I've been fortunate to be part of Alpin, the Alpin family, for the last 7 years now, 6 years. Alpin, for anyone that doesn't know, is one of the leading companies in the region in the field of sustainable development for built assets. We specialize in providing holistic sustainability services for our partners, clients in the entire region, and basically guiding the industry and trying to do a positive impact to our communities and to our societies as well. Once we talk about the certifications, because they're intrinsically tied to the services that Alpin does, I'll get a chance to let you know a bit more about what it is that we do. All right. I think Sandra probably mentioned this, but if you have any questions, we'll have a dedicated time at the very end. You guys can ask me any question. I'm happy to hear any questions. So yeah, let's keep that towards the end. All right. Oh, and Sandra asked me about CSA. Yeah, I forgot to mention. Obviously, you guys know what LEED is. CSA is the commissioning association, the British Commissioning Associations, not the British, that's the BCA. CSA is the commissioning, forgot what the S stands for, association. Okay. It is one of the authorities that specializes in setting the standard for how actual on-site commissioning has happened. I started off as a trainee level, progressed to level 1. Unfortunately, haven't continued after level 1. That was a while back, but it's one of my aspirations to continue to level 6. It's pretty much the PhD of commissioning. So you can say I'm still in high school commissioning, but the good news is I'm not the one that will commission potential projects from Alpin. Our much more specialist people will. So that's what I would just also mention before I forget, I would just encourage everyone to use our chat box and write your questions even during presentation so you don't forget them, and then we'll try to address them at the end. Perfect. So, yeah. Wonderful. Okay. So let's move forward. So the first slide here talks about green building certification, but I think the main reason everyone has been asking about ROA, and this is honestly as someone that's been in the industry for so long, and there's a thirst to know what is the impact of sustainability, and specifically sustainability standards, on costs, and how they can reap the benefits of sustainability for built assets. Now, what the structure of this presentation, what we'll do is we'll go over some of these certification standards, and we'll give you a certification by certification idea of the impacts and the studies that have happened in terms of the ROI value. And that's the purpose of this presentation. I probably didn't mention this. So to be very clear, the purpose of this presentation is to give you an overview of what the ROI is expected to be for some of these major certification standards in the region. Okay, ROI being obviously return on investment. All right, so first, my favorite part of any presentation, first setting the rule on what sustainability is. Today, we have a lot of greenwashing in terms of what sustainability, everyone seems to use the term very loosely. Sustainability is very simple. It is about satisfying the needs of the current generation without compromising the ability of future generations to achieve their needs. Very simple. What we need as humanity today, we achieve that without jeopardizing, without messing up the planet for future generations. That's the very simple version of that. Obviously, there is sustainability for built assets, which is part of this family, this overall family of definition, which is basically looking at assets from a cradle to cradle approach, and trying to approach these assets in a way that maximizes the design, construction, operation, maintenance, renovation, and demolition of them, and basically creating other assets because of the after demolition, so cradle to cradle actually. So this is sustainability in buildings. And one of the major misconceptions of what sustainability is a lot of people mistake it for the environmental approach. Now, that is, I would say, 1/3 true, because sustainability in its very essence must look at the environment as a key pillar of preservation, of improving. However, it does not stop with the environment. We have something in sustainability called the triple bottom line, which is quite basically the most important element of sustainability for built assets. We look at the environment, we try to yes, all the stuff we've heard on the news, we're trying to lower pollution, we're trying to preserve resources, not just by recycling, but actually using less, reusing material. So this is for the environment. However, we also look at people, how people respond to the initiatives that we take. So today, we look at built assets not just as the effect they have on the environment, but also how they impact the people inside and the people interacting with these assets. So we want to make sure that people inside the buildings are comfortable, they're healthy, they're not impacted negatively because of that. And the economic profit. So this would not be feasible in any way if we do not look at the economic feasibility of sustainability, especially for built assets. The little circle in the middle, that's what sustainability is. All right, so green building certification, again, the idea with green building certification is to bring in all of these key pillars that we discussed and to create a positive net impact on these built assets. All right, so what are the general, some of the general benefits of green buildings? We look at, in terms of operation maintenance, water saving, energy saving, waste, reducing waste, and other maintenance saving. By improving the performance, you have to spend less money fixing stuff. It's very simple. In terms of the society, the social impact, we're looking at health benefits. We'll talk a bit about sick building syndrome. I'm just going to time myself here, keep some time towards the end. So health benefits, increased productivity. We want obviously to work in offices that promote our productivity and lower sick leave and basically make sure that employees feel comfortable. Lower emissions, again, I do not want to be in a built asset that is harming me or harming the environment, and overall positive environmental impact, which are tied together. Also, we'll look at the financial side, very important. This is one of the questions we get a lot from our developers, from our clients. How do I benefit from a commercial sense when it comes to applying sustainability? Well, we'll talk about this a bit more later, but it is very clear that there's a direct correlation between the cost, between the and financial returns and the value of your assets and sustainability. It's very proportional. The higher the sustainable performance of your asset, the more valuable your asset is, and the higher the income from that asset, whether it's rent or sale or even the reputation. Obviously, this doesn't have a money value in terms of reputation, but it does have a qualitative impact on the developer's sales bottom line. So, as promised, we're going to tackle this certification by certification. Obviously, we're going to talk about the big ones. LEED by the United States Green Building Council. I'm sure you've heard of it. We'll talk you through some of the intricacies of LEED, and eventually we'll talk about the ROI of LEED and what is expected in terms of cost and benefit. We'll talk a bit about Mostadam. This is our baby, the first green building rating system in Saudi Arabia. It is the new up-and-coming standard. It's been highly recommended in KSA, and obviously data is not readily available, so whatever we can share here will be beneficial to whoever is thinking of using this standard. Third is BREEAM, the UK equivalent of LEED. It's actually, it predates LEED. Some people might not know this, but it's actually been developed before LEED by the the Building Research Establishment based out of Watford. And finally, GSAS based in Qatar, another very prominent regional certification standard developed by GORD. Again, quite successful in promoting sustainability and pushing the envelope when it comes to sustainable development. All right. So I'll try my best to power through the technical side of sustainability. You can ask me other questions if you want, because the aim of the game here is to talk more about the benefits in terms of ROI. So I'll go through these quite quickly. Sustainability obviously is not a one-stage thing. Whoever thinks that sustainability starts or stops at one stage is unfortunately mistaken. It is a comprehensive, holistic approach. It starts from planning from the very moment you conceptualize the building or the built asset, and it goes all through occupancy and operation. So it does not stop when the contractor hands over the keys. It actually has to keep going during occupancy, during operation, all throughout until demolition. Okay. So, talking about LEED, what is LEED? LEED is the most widely used green building rating system in the world. It was established in the early 90s. It covers pretty much every phase of the development. It starts from the design. There's a separate submission for design. There's a separate stage for construction, requirements for construction. And finally, a completely separate rating system, LEED rating system for the operational stage. So at the end of the idea behind a green building rating system, and this applies to all of them, and I want to talk a bit about this. The idea is beyond the branding of it. It's about packaging a set of sustainability initiatives in one package. That means while LEED and BREEAM and Mostadam and all of them are different names, the concept of all of them is very similar. They're trying to put together a package of sustainability KPIs, performance indices, that will improve your building performance. Now, yes, they're packaged slightly different, the administrative side is different, but they all filter down to the same thing, which is third-party certification and confirmation of your sustainable performance. And one example I always give is like going and getting a degree, let's say an engineering degree. You can get them from any different university, and you would be an engineer. And similarly, you can basically go to all the classes and get the information, but there's no one that would certify you as an engineer. And the same concept applies here. What this does, the wonderful thing about certification standards, is that they basically give a label to the performance of your building, hence giving it a quantifiable value. And this is what LEED does, as well as the other rating systems. So again, LEED has different rating systems within its umbrella. There's the building design and construction, the interior design and construction, operational building and maintenance, neighborhood development, and homes. Again, this ties into what I mentioned before. There are different tiers of LEED certification. So you can have LEED certified, which is the minimal, let's say, certification tier. However, you can aim higher, and this means that you would spend a bit more. And keep this in mind, because this ties into our discussion later on about ROIs. So you probably have to spend a bit more to go from LEED certified to silver to gold and finally to platinum, which is the highest. But it is also expected that you would reap more benefits were you to go to LEED platinum, and this also applies very much on the financial side. All right, so every day there's 1.8 million square feet of building space being certified as LEED. LEED is obviously something that is working. It helps building owners, not just in the sustainability and side and the financial side, but it also helps them document their corporate social responsibility, which is obviously a very important aspect of businesses these days. So is their corporate governance when it comes to sustainability. So now we start that transition. Now this quote is very interesting because it starts that transition. So we've done our homework. We've certified, or we're looking to certify a project as LEED certified. So what are the benefits? What are the benefits post completion? So how do we gauge whether LEED or any rating system was actually beneficial? And this quote right here shows us the beginnings of visualizing the benefits. We can see that LEED projects are among the most efficient, high-performing buildings in the world. And that, my friends, directly translates into financial savings. Some of the things that are very, very directly impactful of the operational costs of any ongoing building today are water scarcity, rising energy costs, employees' inclination for green building work, the environment, degradation of the asset, higher building maintenance repair costs, and sink building syndrome. All of these are negative impacts that happen throughout, let's say, the 30, 40-year life cycle of a project. Now, with all these elements, green building rating systems have started from this point, and they seek to find solutions to each and every one of them. With the first two elements, they're quite prevalent here in our region, in the Gulf region. When we talk about water scarcity, bear in mind that water is quite expensive here. And it might not be expensive to the end user, but in terms of providing fresh water, operating water, it's quite expensive. Similarly to energy costs. So as we see that these rates are going higher and higher, still the general trend is very much upwards for the entire region. We look at sustainability to temper or counterbalance that. If the costs are going higher, efficient. Again, with LEED, the targets are clear. This ties into the previous slide. Save money, consume less energy, use less water, use fewer resources, and better indoor air quality. This affects, again, goes back to the initial three pillars that they discussed. So society, people, the economics of the built asset, and finally the environment. So the experience of a LEED building owner. So a lot of these times, one that LEED is an interesting proposition. Why should we go for LEED? As opposed to other pursuits in life, I very rarely get, let's say, questions asked about the feedback of other building owners that have had their building certified under LEED. Now, this is very interesting because if you're ordering food, you look at the comments and feedback of other customers. And we've never actually done this for LEED. No one has asked us about this. So what we've gone ahead and we've asked people, like owners of LEED certified buildings, what is the let's say the feedback, and we've seen reduced operating costs, lower employee absenteeism, so that means less sick leave, that means a better operating business. We've seen higher resale value, we've seen lesser time on the market, and this is very, very, I'll talk about this a bit more in a bit. We've seen faster lease-up rates, that means the price of the fees of rent have gone upwards much quicker, and we've seen reduced risk. Reduced risk in the sense of fires, of malfunctions, in the sense of, let's say, this has been the qualitative, bear in mind, we're talking about not ROI now, but we're just talking about qualitative feedback from LEED building owners. All in all, there is I'll say a surprising tone when you talk to building owners that have had their buildings certified under LEED, because they didn't expect this level of performance, and they didn't expect this level of benefits to come through from their LEED certification. Now, let's talk numbers. LEED buildings command rents as much as 10% above market value. This is, bear in mind, across the LEED certification spectrum. So this doesn't apply to one country or to one region, but it is the average across the LEED buildings across the planet. They also lease up higher by as much as 20% of the average. So there's a chance that you can make 20% higher than the average market in terms of rent. This is in terms of the direct impact of the asset. However, there's also operational impacts. This goes back to savings on energy, where there's 30 to 40% saving on energy. This is, again, the lower tier, and I can confirm this through the modeling softwares that we use today in the region. We're talking, at the very least, for LEED certified, we're talking 20, 22% savings on energy, which is quite a large margin. We're also talking about 2 to 10% increase in employee productivity. The lower end, so when we talk about 1 to 2%, usually ties into the LEED for buildings, for construction, for design and construction. For operation and maintenance, this actually goes higher than 10%, but I think the range averages up at 10%. The reason it goes higher than 10% might surprise people. With LEED EBOM, one of the things that has been done quite profusely is surveying people's comfort levels for everyday elements. And this is something that I'll get into. People get asked why they're not comfortable or why they're not feeling well. And the answers might surprise you, but obviously we don't do a lot of surveys here. Things about design temperature, design set temperature in the room, things like humidity, about the lighting, about noise reduction. So all of these elements, which we don't usually consider, all of these elements are tackled in LEED existing buildings in operation. So that means by finding out about these issues and finding no cost to low cost improvements to these elements, you end up improving the welfare of your employees quite considerably. And this is 10%, I would say, is the lower end of how much you should expect in employee productivity. And this also means that, there you go, 35% less absenteeism as compared to conventional construction. Now, you might say, Nareg, this is across the planet. It might not be indicative of our region. Well, I have an anecdote to tell you about in Saudi Arabia, and this was not even recently. This was maybe 6 years ago. So 6 years ago, we were approached by a client who wanted to certify his building as LEED, under LEED certification. He wanted LEED Gold, and he was very excited about it. He showed a lot of enthusiasm. What was interesting about this client was that he was very interested in LEED, but he didn't really understand what LEED was, which was interesting. He just wanted LEED certification, and we found this very refreshing. Obviously, we want to support our partners, want to support our clients, and 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 we made a lot of effort to obviously help the client get LEED certification, which we did eventually. But somewhere at the very beginning, I asked the client, like, why do you want to get your building LEED certified? And he spoke a lot about, you know, the branding side, the marketing side. Eventually, however, when he told me the gist of it, his neighbor had built a building and certified it under LEED, and had rented it out at 150% higher rent than the average price for that neighborhood. The reason was a lot of international firms and companies were renting out, and they found out that there was one LEED certified building in the neighborhood, and they wanted a LEED certified building because they understood the value of that certification. They understood that their costs would be reduced. They also understand that as part of their corporate social responsibility, they wanted to have a positive impact on the environment. So this led to them paying 150% higher rent knowingly, because they knew that there was a positive impact. And this gentleman was very excited. He was very open-minded to it, and when he found out actually the benefits of it, if anything, that increased his enthusiasm. So in essence, for this asset, it more than doubled the value of the asset in Saudi Arabia, which should be relevant to everyone here. So let's get an idea with the numbers. The average cost paid for US GBC certification is roughly $5,000 per asset. The average cost for LEED implementation is 1 to 3% of the project's total budget. Correct. Now, a lot of people will jump in here and they will tell me that, you know, we've seen prices a lot more higher, or we've had, you know, experiences maybe that this has gone beyond 3%. Well, the truth is very simple. It really depends how efficiently you do the work, and how experienced the consultant that you get is at implementing LEED certification. Remember, the more experienced consultants understand how to achieve LEED, and in essence, these savings and proper performance without having to spend, you know, without having to sell a kidney and the liver, basically. We want to keep costs at a reasonable level. LEED does not want to just spend money or just for the sake of increasing cost. And this has to be made clear to everyone today that is aspiring to enter the field of sustainability, or any developer that is interested in sustainability. The purpose of LEED is not to just add capital cost. There is very much a chance that your capital cost in terms of impact for LEED certification might just be a very minimal non-material cost that ends up being $5,000, $10,000, or the cost of LEED and the consultant. And the reason for that is very simple. You don't have to buy stuff just to fill it in to get LEED certification. The aim is to find optimized and efficient equipment and to install them in the right way and to operate them in the right way, and to push the suppliers and to push the contractors and to push everyone to do this work in a sustainable manner. This does not directly imply additional cost. Yes, sometimes it does mean additional cost. However, the more we look at best practices and the more we turn these into, let's say, regional best practices, the less these costs will be. And eventually, I very much expect that these costs will be negligible in terms of the overall development here in the GCC, especially considering the way that we're going in terms of improving the building quality. So yeah, the average return on investment on LEED projects, the very simple, if you want the slide that sums up LEED in terms of ROI, is 1 to 3 years. All right. So let's talk about a few LEED projects. I think we have one here, which is the INSEAD project here in Abu Dhabi. This has been an Alpin certified project. This is their campus in Abu Dhabi, or their temporary campus, I think, until for a few years. So we were the consultant there. It's an educational entity. It was roughly an office of 4,500, 5,000 square meters, roughly fit 168 occupants. So what was the thinking here? What was the idea behind LEED certification? We wanted lower operational costs. That was very clearly spelled out at the very start. We talked with the facility management team, and very clearly the aim was not just the branding or to say that we have LEED certification, but rather to use the opportunity that they're applying LEED for existing buildings or interiors to lower operational costs. And this was something that was spelled out very clearly, and they were very enthusiastic about doing that. We were also looking at healthier work environments. Obviously, INSEAD is a leading entity when it comes to educational services. It's very important for them that their students get to enjoy a very positive experience, educational experience. And the asset that the education is being given in is quite important. So that was a very important and prominent element when it came to certifying their project. They wanted a healthier work environment, a healthier studying environment. They wanted smaller energy and water consumption footprint. That was very important, especially in terms of their corporate responsibility, in terms of their outtake about the environment. It meant a lot to them to lower their footprint when it came to energy and water consumption. And there was always these long-term sustainable strategies that didn't just stop with certification. They wanted to make sure that they're taking the long view in terms of the brand of INSEAD and making sure that there's this constant push towards sustainability. And they felt LEED was the right direction. Finally, reduced greenhouse gas emissions. All right. So a lot of people they probably wonder what are the issues that might come up in LEED, and how do you get some of the some clients or partners to actually get to improve or face these issues that might come up. Well, so one of the first things you need is a very cheap thing to do. It doesn't cost material, it doesn't cost money, and that is your day-to-day behavior, and that is a change of mindset of the building asset occupants and owners. You have to change the mindset. It doesn't cost money, but it's probably the most difficult thing to do. Understanding that sustainability can be just a flick of the switch. It could be understanding and saving water and turning off the tap. It's understanding that energy and water are not infinite resources. They're finite resources that cost a lot of money to generate. So this change in mindset is so important. And we saw a lot of training. So one of the key things we delivered to INSEAD was a lot of training and awareness, making sure that people understood what was going into the work and why some technologies were used to maybe even counter some negligence. So we saw a lot of this, and after a year, we were very impressed with the results. The second thing is we're looking at the lighting. It's not an expensive thing, to be honest. Changing light bulbs using efficient lighting, whether it's LED or anything similar, it wasn't expensive, but it had a big impact. Looking at installing motion and daylight sensors, again, this seems to counter any let's say slips, human slips, in terms of turning off the light or whatnot. Using energy efficient appliances, and yes, this meant whether it's microwaves, whether it's televisions, whether it's laptops, monitors, they make a big difference. So we made it clear that whenever INSEAD wanted to buy appliances, that they were looking at energy efficient material, equipment, anything that lent its support to proper energy use. And you know what? This never always meant more expensive equipment. It just meant that they had to look a bit harder, but usually they found something at the same price that they didn't know about that performed much better. This also goes to using water efficient appliances. This is not more difficult, I promise. It's sometimes just using a restrainer, for example, for your tap water, or limiting the intake of water. So it's not a difficult element at all. So other issues, waste management. When I say waste management, a lot of people directly assume recycling. No, recycling is actually not the first solution. The first solution is actually just using less. Whenever we get all of these, we buy excessively or we get excessive material, there's always extra waste that comes through. So one solution is to use less. Second solution is to actually reuse. So find ways to reuse material instead of just throwing it away. And the third stage after that is actually recycling, if it gets to the waste bin. So the aim is for material not to get to the waste bin, but it does. We look at recycling as a next step. We also look at the indoor air quality, improving the quality of our breathing air, lowering VOCs. This could come from paints, this could come from sealants, adhesives. This could come from even the kinds of air fresheners that they use. So looking at this and trying to improve the quality of air that people breathe. Tracking and preventing the use of hazardous material. Again, you would be surprised at how many times this happens, that materials that are not approved or are dangerous to people are used. So this became a quite clear initiative to stop this from happening. And finally, monitoring greenhouse gas emissions, which you can do, by the way. We here at Alpin, we try to let our clients know, because usually clients don't know that they can monitor the greenhouse gas emissions. And there's the tools that we have in-house that can help them do that. All right. Now, I won't waste too much time here. To give you a quick overview, is ARC. It is one of the tools that LEED uses that helps you measure performance. Now, I think one of the things that LEED always, maybe before the early 2000s, one of the things they always suffered with is actually demonstrating the results of a LEED certified building. So this is what they did recently. A couple of years back, they came up with ARC. What ARC does is it shows you the building performance versus the global average and the local average. And I want you to take a look here at our INSEAD project. And as you can see, we perform better than the local average by around 10%. We perform better than the global average by around 7% for LEED certified buildings. This is how well we're actually performing. Look at the water performance. It just shows you how well the performance has been just fine-tuned to make sure that we're saving in terms of water and energy. Again, waste performance. This was, I think, the local average for waste saving is quite high here, especially in Abu Dhabi. So we kept up with the local average, and we were ahead of the global average as well. Going a bit beyond, and this is one of the usually qualitative elements that are put into a quantitative factor here in ARC. As you can see, the human experience and the feedback we got in terms of human experience was quite decent. It was higher than the local and global average. All right, so behind schedule. So I'm going to go through these few things quickly. I'm going to start with Mostadam, Saudi Arabia's standard for sustainability. It was launched in 2019, late 2019. It covers the aspects for residential buildings, communities, and commercial buildings. With Mostadam, something to keep in mind is that it's a younger rating system. It hasn't achieved, let's say there isn't enough footprint in terms of Mostadam certified projects to give you an exact ROI like LEED. So for LEED, you can look at 1 to 3% in a let's say a correctly applied built asset. So LEED can cost something between 1 to 3% in capital cost. If you're going for LEED Platinum and you don't have an experienced consultant there to guide you with these, with the elements for LEED Platinum, it might cost as high as 10, 12%. So the difference is quite substantial. Please bear in mind, when we say 10 to 12%, we mean the cost of the application, we mean the cost in design, because, and this is very important, there might be issues in design that you pay the price for during construction. So if certain elements have not been highlighted properly during design, have been designed in a certain way, and no one pointed out that these elements are not efficient, they're not compliant. Similarly, you might not have a proper commissioning authority on site. So the MEP design hasn't been reviewed. So what this will mean is that you have to pay a substantially higher price during construction to mitigate these issues and to go back and get back on track when it comes to LEED certification. So in terms of Mostadam, going back to Mostadam, as you can see, there's a lot that Mostadam wants to target. However, it's still a young rating system. It's quite it promotes the elements that are necessary for Saudi Arabia and I believe very much the GCC. The emphasis has always been energy and water. The majority of the impact is on energy and water. There's also other elements that we looked at, whether it's the cultural impact, the regional impact, looking at materials and waste, understanding what kind of material and waste streams in Saudi Arabia. And as you can see, one of the elements that they wanted as part of the rating system is the awareness of sustainability. Training and awareness is an intrinsic part of Mostadam. And one more thing you want to know about Mostadam is that we also we have a separate section in the building design and construction part that talks about operation and management, as opposed to LEED that probably doesn't has a completely different rating system that tackles that issue and doesn't look into that matter in design and construction. With Mostadam, they wanted the bridge from design and construction into operation to have that bridge there. So this is why there's a special section in the design and construction part that talks about enhancing operation and management as well. So Mostadam has always been looking at the savings aspect, and while obviously we can't document this right now because the case studies are still going on with new projects undergoing certification, the initial results are very promising, and from what I understand, that white paper will be issued about Mostadam's performance, maybe versus other rating systems, I'm not sure, but in terms of the national average. And from what we can see, Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabian villas, there is an improvement as much as 25% in terms of the energy water performance in Mostadam certified villas. So we've had wonderfully promising results. And the ROI, again, this is initial, so please don't quote me on this later on until we issue the white paper. The initial results show an ROI of 9 months, which is phenomenal. In terms of, I believe it's Mostadam Silver, if I'm not mistaken. So the results are very promising. Again, there's a lot of room for improvement, so we want to keep doing that. We want to see how it compares to other rating systems. But yeah, Mostadam is one of the up and coming rating systems out there. All right, so next is again a heavyweight in the sustainability market, which is BREEAM. BREEAM has been around the longest. It is based in the UK by the Building Research Establishment. BREEAM is a lot more flexible than LEED. I won't go into the details. It's a lot more flexible, however, than LEED in terms of creating more tailored approach for every single project. However, as you can see, there's quite a few buildings out there, a lot of built assets that are certified under BREEAM. And the outreach is phenomenal as well. They have projects in 77 different countries. We have big developers here in the UAE that absolutely love BREEAM. They feel like there's real added value. And we have had projects, unfortunately they're confidential projects, so I can't share a lot of details, but what I can say is that the value has increased in terms of the asset value compared to similar assets in the region. The asset difference is around 10 to 15%, which is, again, phenomenal in terms of the financial benefits. BREEAM credits target health and well-being, pollution, energy, water, waste, land use and ecology, management, transport, and materials. You'll find consistency across rating systems in terms of the goals and the targets of each rating system. Here you'll find similar goals as LEED and Mostadam. They want to ensure best environmental practices. They want to consider environmental concerns. At the same time, they want to limit a building's impact on the environment and to create a market where we promote innovative solutions from suppliers and consultants. And finally, we want to stimulate demand for sustainable buildings. This is a very positive impact that these rating systems have, that they improve the quality of these built assets. Benefits of BREEAM: risk mitigation, again, reducing insurance costs. This is the UK study, so bear in mind that this might be slightly different here for the GCC. But what they've seen in the UK is that the high insurance costs are not applicable to BREEAM certified assets, specifically because the risks are lower. You can also see that they've seen a 25% difference between BREEAM certified projects and non-BREEAM certified projects. The CSR value to entities, to corporate entities, has been quite high as well. Reduced operational costs has always been an important element for BREEAM projects. Again, this is why they tailor the scorecard for every single project, and improved employee satisfaction. Again, you can see here that there's a constant theme between the different rating systems. Now to talk numbers, again, BREEAM has been around for a longer time, so data is more readily available. What we've seen is that going from BREEAM Pass to Excellent, the range of capital additional cost goes from 0 to 1.71% for office and school buildings. So as you can see, the difference is very important for BREEAM to start the range at 0%, because this is very true. Again, with proper planning, with proper, having the right consultant on board, your net costs do not need to increase. Sorry, not net costs. Net costs will definitely go down, considering the 32% life cycle savings. However, with capital costs, this can be as low as 0 in terms of BREEAM's impact on your costs. They do go higher for more sophisticated projects such as healthcare buildings. But again, looking at the different factors, 5.5% is not much because of the impact it can have on the business, like a hospital. And we've seen a lot of projects here that have benefited greatly, not just in terms of sustainability per se, but in terms of overall performance, which is to the delight of the owners and its occupants. So the ROI. So to give you a concluding statement for BREEAM, we've seen that with a range of 2% higher capital costs, these are paid usually back within 2 to 5 years. So this is your ROI here. We're talking a maximum of 5 years, which is quite conservative in my opinion. I think usually they're paid within 1.5 years to 2 years. All right, final rating system that we'll discuss for today. I'm gonna go through it quickly, which is GSAS, the Global Sustainability Assessment System, administered by the Gulf Organization for Research and Development, based out of Doha, and it was established in 2009. It's one of the most prominent rating systems in the GCC. Very similar rating categories for GSAS. Similar grading structure as I would say to BREEAM, with a point-based system that goes up and down depending on performance on each criteria. Highest being 6 stars, lowest being 1 star, if I'm not mistaken. Again, they look at the triple bottom line, environment, economic benefits, and social benefits. And one of the benefits of GSAS has been, specifically in the Doha market, in the Qatar market, has been a sizable decrease in operating costs. So as you can see, the values here, Gord has done a really good job in terms of quantifying the benefits of GSAS. So what we've seen is a decrease in operating costs amounting to around 13.6%, 10.9% increase in building value. And one of the most prominent examples of that has been the Lusail development. I don't know if people are familiar with that. We've seen the value of these buildings basically extend beyond what the initial expectation was. So 11% is quite a big difference for both assets. 9.9% improvement in terms of the assets ROI, overall ROI. 6.4% increase in occupancy. Again, very decent numbers here for GSAS certified projects. And finally, 6.1% higher rent. That's all very, very positive. Well, this sort of concludes my presentation. Before we go to the questions, I'll just put in a final just concluding thought. The ROI of green building rating systems, if done properly, should not, in my personal experience based on the last decade, should not extend beyond 2 to 3 years. The aim of these sustainable rating systems is to improve both the quantitative performance of your building and the qualitative performance, and something that we cannot put an ROI here. A lot of entities will try to tell you about these. It's very difficult to quantify, and they're usually not taken into consideration when the balance sheet comes up and the calculations for the budget are made. But the impact is sizable, and the people, the people and the owners and the occupants that will use this asset will be the ones to benefit greatly from these considerations. The second part of it is and this is a very important, let's say, shift in mindset. Sustainability cannot be seen in these rating systems, cannot be seen as a luxury that just add costs for the purpose of branding. This is not a iterative change in terms of the overall branding because of a certification. That is not the case at all. We have to separate the branding, such as the name, from the actual benefits of these rating systems, which are basically improvement of the overall performance of your asset. So all these rating systems do, and please bear this in mind, all these rating systems do is quantify and put it in a structure and give you a certificate for it. Okay, so Sandra, that pretty much concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Nareg. Can you go back to the slide where you have like ROI of LEED certification system, because it's prevailing here in Kuwait, so we can have it and discuss, I believe, a little bit more. And then I will be moving to the chat box where we have like several questions.
Okay.
I think it was like, thank you very much. This is really detailed. And then I'm glad you showed not only numbers, but also the benefits. So actually it can justify the whole process, which is the most important. Yeah, so we can see here average return of investment 1 to 3 years. Recently, like we got a lot of questions like from, let's say, developers and investors and building owners who are aiming for LEED certification for existing buildings and also for new construction, that they're concerned that like return of investment for their certified building is like much more than you are presenting, because subsidies here in Kuwait are quite strong. And then the return of investment goes beyond these numbers, like between 5 to 10 years. Like, do you have experience from the local market? I know in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, it's completely different situation about subsidies and the tariffs are a little bit higher, but like how you're approaching to clients who cannot, let's say, believe in these numbers, if you're talking about Kuwait market?
Of course. To answer that question, so my experience primarily, my personal experience primarily has been in the Saudi market. And it's very relevant because, let's say, the UAE and Qatar, it's a bit different, and whereas Saudi and Kuwait, I feel are similar especially in one aspect, which is the subsidization of energy and water. And both of them, funnily enough, in the last 3 years, even though they're the most subsidized and the difference between them and UAE and Qatar is different, what we've seen is that they've had the highest increases of anywhere in the region together, so Saudi and Kuwait. In terms of these subsidizations, my expectation is over the next 5-6 years, we will see the subsidization go lower. Now, how much that decrease is, I do not know. We do use a decreasing factor, constant decreasing factor, which obviously is not very accurate, but in our calculations, we use a decreasing factor to calculate the cost of energy for the next 5 to 10 years. And what I can tell you is that in Saudi Arabia, when we've done the calculations purely based on energy and water, the ROI has never actually crossed 6 to 7 years. And this is in worst case scenario. Now, we did a study, a very similar study in 2016 with one of our clients. Again, it's confidential, I can't say it, but the client was very worried about, because they were buying chillers that were more, let's say, efficient than, more expensive, in short, because of the lead requirements. And they wanted to see what the ROI values are. Our initial calculation at the beginning of the project was 9 years. 9 years, not great. There was a lot of management talk about, is it worth it, etc. And again, we used a constant decreasing value for that subsidy. By the time the project was 1 year into construction and the chillers were not yet delivered, that ROI was run again, and it was reduced to 7 years, to 6.5, 7 years. By the time the chillers were delivered, installed, etc., the ROI had gone down to 4 years and 5 months. What I'm trying to say is, it's not going to stay the way it is. Most likely, we will see these subsidies go down, and we will see energy costs go higher, water prices go higher. Now, as I mentioned, this doesn't stop at energy and water, right? Things like waste, other elements such as looking at the building performance, looking at rent, because we always think about it as a cost.
Yes.
But if you have an asset, again, this depends on the use of the asset, but if you have an asset that you can rent out at 15, 20% more, this automatically lowers the project ROI. And this contributes directly to your LEED certification.
Or let's say reduce the cost of maintenance for existing buildings, for example,
Exactly.
which is like drastically then.
Exactly. So one of the major costs here, for example, is HVAC. And now I can speak about the UAE here, but I see a lot of this happening in the region. The UAE has been implementing district cooling. That means the fees, for me, for example, as a renter, I pay different fees for district cooling than I do for energy. And you don't want those fees to be too high. And especially in the summertime, those fees can be actually substantial fees because of the load that comes on to these district cooling chillers, because of obviously the heat that we have, the temperatures that we have. So it could be a challenge for these district cooling plants. So it becomes quite expensive to run. And as we see more and more district cooling plants open up in Saudi, in Kuwait, I see a lot of them, people will start to notice that these fees are adding up. And all of a sudden, you will want to pay less to turn on your AC, right? Which is, here is quite important for us to have proper HVAC. Again, all of these are future considerations. In many ways, in accounting, remember, you take in the future, you don't consider future gains, but you count future losses. So it's always a conservative approach. But you're always doing the right thing by being sustainable. The argument I would say has made which rating system and do we need a rating system, but the discussion about sustainability is, the argument is clear.
Exactly. Thank you for that comment. It's very valuable. Let's go to the chat box. Like we have a lot of questions. Who is feeling more comfortable asking directly? Please raise your hand and open the camera and let's see your face. Right. It's much easier, in this.
I won't bite, promise.
No, well, yeah, it's much better that we see each other and we discuss. So let's go to Brian's comment. When a building has been evaluated as a LEED, GSAS, or any other of high-level sustainability, gold or 5-star in design, how is that then verified after the building is built and constructed? I see a number of projects where the happy days end as soon as the building is raised. Where are the proof of the 5 stars or gold rating?
Very good question. That's a very good question. So I'll give you an example. A lot of people graduate as engineers or other disciplines, and they don't work in that disciplines. Now, in many ways, I believe that you should not say that this person is an engineer if they've studied engineering but are working in other disciplines. And you're completely right. But you still have the certificate that you studied engineering. And it's the exact same concept here. You have done what is necessary to put in place the fundamentals of operating a sustainable building. I think there's a clear misconception that if you get the 5-star designer construction certificate, that this is that your building will be sustainable for the next 30 years. There's no guarantee of that. Just like if I were to study, if I were to get a medical license or a medical degree, it doesn't mean that after 10 years, if I've been working in something else, that I will be called a doctor. However, it does not negate the fact that the fundamentals have been put in place for me to go into this field. And the same applies to your building. Your building has been designed and built to be run, this is very important, to be operated as a 5-star GSAS or LEED Platinum or whatever. Now, the next day you come in and as a tenant or building owner, you change everything, then this is no longer applicable. So the marketing, what I'm trying to say is do not mistake the marketing side of it, which is, always being able to say this is a LEED certified building, as the operational side, which is to say that it is an actual sustainable building, which is completely two different things.
Exactly. Great question, great comment. We have another one. Since making the built environment sustainable is a journey, in every phase from planning to construction completion, how can existing building be a LEED certified? Yeah, I mean, this good question. Wow. Like we are certifying the building in a moment, but you can tell me more.
Goes back to the point. I like how these questions all tie in. So again, you're very right. Sustainability is a journey. There's no stop. It's cradle to cradle, growing. It keeps improving. Even a building that is 20 years old, 30 years old, we can still look at ways to make it more sustainable, to make it better performing. It's always better the earlier start, the easier it is, the better it is, the less expensive it is. But that does not mean that we can't make improvements at every stage of built assets life cycle. It's just saying, it's like, again, I like to give examples. It's like being, when you grow up with age, it's a bit more difficult, let's say, staying fit. But that doesn't mean you can't stay fit. It was much easier for me to go to the gym. I never went, but just saying, it was much easier when I was younger than it is now. However, there's still the ability to do that. It takes more effort, that's very true, but it is a journey, and getting LEED certification is still very much plausible for all kinds of assets. Now, if your building is older, it will take a bit more effort. However, you might find your ROI is 6 months because the building was operating in a way that is not great, that is not efficient, it wasn't commissioned properly. Even things, like things that people might be surprised about. The sensor inside of your HVAC system might not be giving the right temperature. So just by recalibrating the sensor, the temperature sensor in your return duct, the AC starts to understand that, wait a second, I've been reading the temperature wrong in the room. I don't need to work this hard to cool the room. So the calibration costs what? Peanuts? And you save money on quite a long period of time. So yeah, LEED is the same concept. It's a journey. Depends where you are in the lifetime of your project. But yeah.
There is also like a recertification, like term, like yes. Of recertification. So like after a couple of years, like the building we are now having office, like it's recertified, like LEED operations maintenance. You resubmit all the data, and then if you need to improve something and update and upgrade, then you can, after several years, you can get a new certification to prove that you are basically managing and operating your building in a sustainable way. Let's see the next question. Moving beyond consultant-client relationship, if we think of end consumer who is probably renting an apartment in LEED certified building, isn't there a need to educate the benefits she would be getting by living in such a building as a way of justifying the higher rents that she or he is paying? And who takes the responsibility of end consumer awareness? Asking as an end consumer myself. This is great also question. We discussed lately, like what is the point of designing and building and operating like a green building if end consumers, occupants and tenants are actually not behaving in the way the building or using the building in this way it's like supposed to be. So how does it work from your experience? I can share some experience from Germany and Austria, but let's see how it's working here in the region.
In the region here, in terms of I mean, there's so many different layers to this. First of all, it's not just about, you know, directly creating awareness in the tenant. It's about creating awareness in the overall society. Because again, think of this, you know, when we started defining sustainability, we talked about overall sustainability, and we talked as built assets as just one element. One of the things that we need to think about is all of the resources that are critical resources that we have, not just in buildings, but overall the ones that we use as Earth. We are basically now consuming more than the Earth can provide. So this is a fact. So we need to look at this on an overall societal level. The next thing would be to actually, as you mentioned, look at tenant awareness. So what I know here, like some of the initiatives that are being done, all of these rating systems, bear in mind, ask the owner to prepare occupant guideline. So in many ways, it helps to explain to tenants, specifically the Mostadam rating system here in Abu Dhabi. It helps explain to the tenant what exactly was the effort that was put in to create an apartment that is sustainable. Now, I understand your point, because a lot of tenants come in and they maybe change the water performing assets. Maybe they put in paint that is not very helpful for the indoor air quality. All of that is valid. However, it is very important that the owner explains to the tenant about the benefits of coming into this. This is why they're paying extra. So it would be counterproductive to actually come in and ruin the assets that are making the asset expensive to begin with. So this is why you're paying 5-10% more, because you want cleaner air. For me, you know, I value clean air in my apartment very highly. So it's important that I'm fine paying more for clean air, but it makes no sense to come in and you know, ruin the HVAC system or change or increase VOC in the apartment if, you know, that's why I paid for that more. And this is very important because it comes down to awareness, and it comes down to creating, whether it's, you know, occupant guidelines or creating community guidelines. You know, we have a community guideline here, for example. It tells you about the efforts that are going in to improve the efficiency of the systems. One of the very nice handouts I got very recently was from the district cooling plant that explained why exactly district cooling, why you're paying for district cooling, and what are the benefits in terms of the environment. And when you read through this and you understand, you know, it's something very passive, but when you read through it and you understand, you say, look, this is good. This is good for the environment. I'm doing something positive. And I think this is kind of the granular level of awareness we need to raise.
Yeah, great. I know, I'll just mention how is in Germany working. Let's say if you're renting apartment in, like they have different certification, DG and B certification system. So basically all your data, consumption data will be shown on a monitor outside of your apartment, which will be very transparent how much.
Wow.
Yeah, so basically like you will see how apartment of your neighbor is performing, and it's really like on show. So you will see how much he's spending water or electricity, and then you will be concerned if he's spending more than he's supposed to spend, or there is some changes, and actually, or you will be encouraged to compete with the better performance of your, like, oh, if my neighbor can be doing it, and if he can, you know, reduce waste or recycle or compost or, you know, use less water, then I can be doing it the same. So it's like part of the community awareness, but also their like desire to change their behavior and then contribute to the community and the environment. Greetings, based on your experience, what's the most suitable certification system for our Gulf region? Also, what's your opinion about the dual certification from the two different boards? This is a question that's asked a lot, especially here in Kuwait. I would like that you can give a question, like answer. We are like supporting any certification system that contributes to the environment and then actually helps building become green. So we would not like give value to one certification against the other. But like, what is the certification system? I would say like mostly used in Gulf region or showed the best results or respected, let's say, some kind of regional and local situation, but I'm sure you will be diplomatic as well.
I have to be diplomatic, you know me, Sandra. I have to be diplomatic, and I'll be very honest. There is no perfect rating system. There's no one that is, you know, head and shoulders above the rest. I think in many ways it really depends on you and the owner and what kind of goals they have in terms of sustainability, because the rating system itself is just, and I emphasize, is just the overall the nice sheet on top. Inside, all of them are more or less the same. It's like, you know, the same goals, the same targets, the same intents, and this is very important. And a lot of people seem to mistake this as like completely different routes, or that, you know, one is better than the other. They're not. This is the honest answer. It's not even diplomatic. It's about understanding that these are just different names, but the concepts are all the same. You want to achieve sustainability, you want to improve your building performance, you want to create a building performance with a positive impact on the environment, on people. It's very simple. Now, would you prefer one rating system over the other? It depends on if you're looking from a technical perspective, where you can maybe get more points or you would be appreciated more. So you find that the regional rating systems highly push, let's say, or highly reward energy and water saving, critical resources. Maybe BREEAM and LEED, they do reward that, but not as much as Mostadam, GSAS. And that's very clear, you know, because the people that were designing this rating system, they come from different regions. So obviously you're going to take the region's priorities more, you know, they're giving more pertinence.
So different certification system basically weights different aspects of sustainability in a different way. So this is basically the best decision to make, to like evaluate them, and then based off your like decision, like, or basically the goals of the developer, of the client, choose one that will suit your internal goals or aims of the company. Either it will be like LEED or GSAS or BREEAM. Also depends, I believe, on the local like consultants. Like if there is like enough knowledge in that certain certification system in the region, it's also very important to choose that one. If there are no consultants like with the great knowledge in the region, that also I think it's kind of starting from zero. In applying that certification system, let's say if you are using some German certification system in Kuwait that no building was certified, like you will be starting like the process to understand first the system and how you can apply it regionally, what kind of products, materials you can use to meet the very high standard, passive system, like passive design, house design. So these are things that comes from your internal, I believe, decision, what is important, strategically important from developer, like the owner of the building, or government, whatever, and then choose one of the certification systems. In your experience, how a very smart building management system has helped in the continuous improvement in sustainability tasks in the operation maintenance?
That's a very good question. It makes up for human shortcomings, as simple as that. It creates a system that is a building that is smart, and that you don't have to worry about people, human errors. You don't have to worry about systems overshooting, undershooting. So in many ways, a smart BMS system is fail-safe in case, for example, someone forgets to turn off the light, or we use, let's say, too much water, and there's someone that tells you, let's say the system tells you you have an issue. And more importantly, if there's a leak, for example, leak detection systems tell you that your system, there's an issue with your system. So this might be, if it were left to, let's say, people, we might do random checks and find out after 6 months that there's a leak, for example. Whereas with a leak detection system in an overall smart BMS system, this will help you detect the leak very quickly. So obviously having a smart system is helpful. It is the next step. It's the next iteration. Yeah, I see it being part of the whole sustainability concept.
Exactly. And then I think we have one more question. What is the validity period of the certification? I think we partly answered that, but.
Correct. It's very simple. For design and construction, just as I mentioned, it's a one-time certification. It means that this building was designed and constructed in a sustainable way. But as our friend at the start asked, like, why is this considered as a sustainable building all its life? It's not. It just means that it was designed and built to be sustainable. After that, you look at operational standards like the LEED EBOM or Mostadam operations or GSAS operations. These are actually periodic certifications, and that's very important. That means that there's no one-time certification for the whole operational period. That means that you have to look at interim periods, I think 1 to 5 years in the case of LEED, and you renew that certification because you have to keep up the effort to run your building in a sustainable way.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Nareg. We have also questions like how to be part of LEED project, and I would like to work on LEED project. There are several job openings at the moment, not much, not many, but if any of you who are attending now are LEED AP in building design construction, please send a CV on info@kuwaigbc.com. I will be helping you with sending your CV to several job posts from our members. We cannot do more than that, but you can get yourself in the game. Also, really appreciate the presentation. This has really been very informative. Looking forward for more. Thank you very much, everyone who has joined. Thank you, Nareg, for your presentation. Very valuable. I'm looking forward that we do more of these kind of webinars where we'll show real numbers from case studies. And if you can share even more information about especially projects you have worked on in the region, I hope we'll collaborate together and share with our members and non-members. If you have any other questions, please send us by email. I will be recording this presentation, sharing with everyone who has registered for today's session. Thank you, Nareg. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.